Welcome back to the Britt Mayer Show. Today we have Jim Desmond, a San Diego County supervisor, gunning to flip California's 49th congressional district with what he calls common sense leadership. A Navy vet, 33-year Delta pilot, and former San Marcos mayor, Jim is no stranger to steering through turbulence, and now he's aiming to take that grit to Washington. Already representing a third of the district's voters in cities like Oceanside and Vista, he has crushed it in a +4 Democrat zone by 20 points, proving that he has crossover clout. He's backed by cops, sheriffs, and Border Patrol, and he is running on securing the border, protecting women's sports, and boosting turnout in military hubs like Camp Pendleton. He's been married for 40 years, has 2 grown kids, and he is here to unpack his path to victory, the values that he lives by, and why he is the guy to finally unseat Mike Levin. Let's dive in. Jim, thank you so much for sitting down with us and joining us today. We're going to talk about things that are going on in San Diego County, how they affect California and the nation at large. And then you just threw your hat in for Congress, which I'm excited to chat with you about. So just to kind of get us started on that angle, you are running for the 49th congressional district. And I want to know why now. And also, I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about that demographic.
Okay. Well, thanks, Britt. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate all you do and the amount. I can tell when you do come to one of our meetings and speak up that you have done your homework. So yes. I appreciate those efforts. But yes, I'm running for the California 49th district against the incumbent Mike Levin, who's been there for about 8 years now, and in my opinion hasn't done much, particularly for San Diego County. And so that race isn't until 2026, but I've started early because this is what you got to do. I'm out there trying to raise as much money as I possibly can and get the endorsements so to hopefully clear the field so that I'm not spending money against the Republicans in the primary. So that's what we're doing right now. But the makeup of the district, it's primarily North County coastal, from Del Mar up north to Del Mar, Solana Beach, Encinitas, Carlsbad, Vista, Oceanside, and then Camp Pendleton, and then into South Orange County as well, San Clemente, San Juan Capistrano, Dana Point, Laguna Niguel. So it doesn't go into, it's kind of both counties, but 2/3 of the voters, 2/3 of the district is in San Diego County. 1/3 is in Orange County. And the previous candidates who ran against Mr. Levin in the last couple of elections, we had Matt Gunderson, he was an Orange County gentleman, and also then Brian Marriott ran against him as well. And unfortunately, they lost both of those races by narrow margins.
They won more in Orange County than they did in the percentage. Is that right?
Yes, they actually won more in Orange County and not in San Diego County. They basically lost in San Diego County. Primarily, my opinion is they're from Orange County, so they didn't have the name recognition of gravitas so they had it was a little bit uphill to work and get those votes. So what I think I have the advantage of is I already represent the 3 largest, or have represented the 3 largest cities in that district, which are Oceanside, Vista, and Carlsbad. Through redistricting, I lost Carlsbad, but I still have Oceanside and Vista. I've won twice there. So, and I think I've got, I'm in my 7th year as a county supervisor. I was 12 years as a mayor of San Marcos, also a North County city here. Not in the district, but I think I've got good name recognition up here in North County. I'm trying to fight for North County issues always, being the supervisor up here. And so I think I've got an advantage over the previous candidates. And I think if I can steal enough votes away from the incumbent here in San Diego County, that's going to be a positive, and hopefully we can flip the seat from a D to an R. So the makeup, it's about 33% Republicans, 37% Democrats, 22% non-party preference. So I think there's some opportunities with the non-party preference people to get over that hump. And in my last supervisorial race in San Diego County here, even though it was a bit of it was a larger district than currently what I'd be running in here for the Congress, it was a +4 Democrat district when I ran, and I won by a 20% margin. So I did pretty well there hopefully what I like to attribute it to is just common sense problem solving and trying to get to solutions to fix issues in North County, which I've done as supervisor, and hopefully, in which I will continue to do in Congress.
The common sense issue is huge, and I want to get into that with you in a minute here. But before we do, I want to talk to you kind of about your background and experience, things that people might not know about you. I love focusing on the human side of politics because we can lose touch of people being people when it comes to politics. And I always think it's interesting to dig into that a little bit. So you have flown planes for Delta, you served in the Navy, and you led San Marcos as mayor, as you just said. So I want to know, just from your experience, how all that mix, it's very eclectic, your experiences shape that common sense leadership that you are talking about when it comes to going to Congress.
Well, I actually, when I was flying, I was still flying for Delta I flew for them about 33 years. I was the whole time I was a mayor of, not the whole time, but the whole time I was mayor of San Marcos, I was also still flying. The unique thing about having an airline job is you're gone maybe 12 or 14 days a month, and then you're home the rest. And so the wife wanted me out of the house, not really. But I started volunteering. I started volunteering in the community. My kids went to, the first elementary school. I got, kind of railroaded into being the PTO president. The principal asked everybody, "Hey, parents, come for parents' night," and basically it was just a recruiting effort for people for the parent teacher organization.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, and I fell into that, and it was me and 12 moms. And I ran the meetings, and they did most of the work. So actually, no, I was also volunteered quite a bit. So just through volunteering is kind of how I got on this political path. I volunteered. Then both our kids were in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And then I started a business in the 90s, a tech business, while I was still flying. And so through that, I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce in San Marcos. And then I got on the Economic Development Committee for the city. And then, there was the town was fighting over cement plants and Walmarts. And we were a burgeoning education hub, I thought, in San Marcos. And so I ran for city council and then for mayor. And when I was termed out as mayor, then it was a seat open and available for county supervisor. So I kind of came through a volunteering path. And whenever I go talk to kids or things like that, most of them don't know what a county supervisor is, but at least a mayor, And so, if you want to be a mayor, start volunteering. You start volunteering in your classroom. And what I've learned is the more you volunteer, the more responsibility people will just give you. And that's kind of the path I took. I didn't really have like an axe to grind or anything for San Marcos, other than I wanted to see it grow and be better. But I got involved through volunteering and then flying airplanes. And to be honest with you, I have a correlation between airplanes and government in that it's the same three basic things you got to do. So I was a captain of an Delta Airlines for half of my career as captain. And the priorities are the same. Safety is number one. It is when you're making decisions on things, safety is number one. And then second one is just proper management of your resources. And in an airplane, it's your fuel, it's your crew, it's you're managing the weather and making decisions based on weather, or airports that may be closed or shut down, or all types of things. And you can't really pull over and ask somebody for help. So when you're flying, and then quality of life in the airplane. So if you got your safeties, is your number one choice. And then management of resources, and then quality of life. Same thing in government. Safety is number one. So your police, your fire, those types of things. You want to make sure safety is handled, and then management of resources. You're managing the taxes that you have. Taxes are like the fuel in the airplane, right. and management of the buildings and whatever else, the roads, the infrastructure, those types of things. Managing that, and if you get the first two right, then the quality of life increases, which is parks and recreation and education and things like that. So in an airplane, it's just changing altitudes, trying to find smooth air. But in government, it's different. You got parks and things like that. So those same three common, safety, management of resources, and then quality of life, it works in government as well. and to
it's the
have
same
those
core values that you can apply
and priorities. And
right.
so, I think that's carried me through in my career and in government and even in Congress. I mean, safety, we need strong military. We need, we be able to support our, police and fire, maybe from the federal level, but to make sure that, people are safe. And then same thing, management of the resources, all the taxes and everything else, and the quality of life of the people you represent. So I so that those both for me kind of blend in together, or kind of a weave together for making good decisions.
It's good. Let's talk about some of your issues that you are zeroing in on. So with this campaign for Congress, some of the issues that I was looking at your website and just things that you've talked about. Congratulations to Riley Gaines just endorsed you. That's very exciting. So congratulations on that. I think that's a huge endorsement. Some of the issues that you talk about are securing the border, protecting women's sports, making California more affordable, a strong and dignified immigration system, and ending homelessness, which is something that Gavin Newsom apparently has been trying to do for 20 years or something, and it's just getting worse. And actually, we see that in San Diego. It's interesting because we see San Diego as being an example of the rest of the state with the immigration policies, even with the radical gender ideology that's coming through and sweeping California. It used to be San Francisco, but San Diego has started to make headlines for all those things, the Tijuana River issue, which impacts the environment. So I wanted to ask you about those ideas that you are wanting to champion. And just if you can talk to us about how those play into this common sense approach, especially because of your experience in San Diego dealing with those head on. These aren't issues that you are unfamiliar with, but you are very familiar with it because San Diego has become just this breeding center for all these issues.
Well, and I think it's unfortunate. And the reason San Diego, in my opinion, is dealing with the same issues that San Francisco has, primarily because of our governor. Our governor, was the mayor of San Francisco, and it was, unfortunately, was a toilet. And I mean, you walk down the street, every other block smelled like urine. And it is, when I was flying, I had layovers there in downtown San Francisco, and it was just, I'd go by City Hall and you see all these people with their shopping carts. And unfortunately, the entire state has gone in this direction. And so homeless issues. So one of the things I want to try to, is fix some of these issues from the federal level, because the state level has to me made it worse, or perpetuated this homelessness where people can just live. We've got mentally ill people living on the streets who living in their own filth. And then we just leave them there. I think, we're better than that. And I think it should be illegal for any state to just leave their mentally ill people on the streets. They got to get them into treatment. And I've been on homeless issues. I've voted against, this housing first model that allows people to continue to use drugs and alcohol while they're in housing or in a hotel or wherever they're put. I want to make sure that you can no longer do that. Now, that's going to take money. It's going to take resources. It's because, unfortunately, now what's happened in the state of California, the state used to have psychiatric or mental health facilities. Well, they're getting rid of those. They're closing those out, which is why we're getting these sexually violent predators back into our community.
Right. That's another huge issue. Yep.
Yeah, but so they're making now the counties and or the cities responsible for facilities if you want to get people into treatment. So there are no statewide facilities that we used to be able to, take people to or put them in. So the counties and communities are going to have to be responsible. You're seeing, these sober living houses, more of them in neighborhoods where people don't want them. And so it's going to take some type of facility. So I've always been trying to push for treatment, getting people into treatment, even if it's involuntarily, as opposed to, especially if they're mentally ill living on the street. So I'd like to see from the federal government the decree for you can't do that. You can't leave mentally ill people on the streets, but you're going to have to provide resources or money for facilities locally to manage that. So I'm hoping to solve some of the local issues from the federal government, from the federal side, because the state's just not stepping in. Tijuana River is a huge one, and I'm glad it's seeing the light of day now. Yeah. Before we would, even though it's been going on for decades.
People might not know because it really hasn't made the headlines that these other issues have, but just give people like a little taste of what's going on with the Tijuana River in San Diego.
Well, unfortunately, Tijuana just doesn't have the sewer system to manage, the number of people that are living there. So their sewage right now, some of it, particularly during the rainy season, is coming across the border. They've got these huge cement culverts, and we've seen that like in LA. They have these big, huge cement culverts. They're in a lot of movies and things like that. There's areas in San Diego County where the rivers are culverted or it's just made of cement. Well, they've got like 15 miles of these cement culverts in Tijuana that all empty out. They diverge into one big culvert that goes right into the border, right, and ends up in San Diego County through this viaduct or culvert system. Mm-hmm. And it's sewage, it's chemicals, whatever they throw in this culvert eventually ends up in the United States. So we're getting all of this dirty, filthy sewage, particularly water, coming into the United States. There is a water treatment system or facility on the U.S. side that is treating some of Tijuana sewage, but it can't handle it all.
Yeah, it's always like struggling with the capacity to process.
Yes. Yes. So we're getting like 50,000 gallons of sewage a day to go through this treatment facility, but they can only handle about half of that. So what they're doing is just diverting it straight into the ocean. We're doing that. The U.S. is doing that because we can't manage that with the size of the facility that's there. It was built in the 90s. Biden has given us some money to enhance or increase the size of that facility. But that facility is really only treating the sewage that's coming and being piped into the plant from Tijuana. What's coming in the Tijuana River is not treated. It doesn't go through the treatment plant. It's just coming with whatever Tijuana is sending us. So there's kind of different parts of this thing. But the water that's coming through needs to be treated before it gets to the U.S. And so that it falls into this big estuary in the which birds and animals and things like that live in the southern region, right up against the border, just south of Imperial Beach. And it meanders through there and then eventually goes out into the ocean and polluting the ocean and shutting down the beaches in Imperial Beach for the last 3 years. They have not been able to open up their beaches, which is the town is suffering because of tourism and things like that. So we need to, I think now is the ideal time. And the reason it's just kind of coming into focus, the focus was always on the thousands of people coming across every day, coming across the border. It was the immigration issue. The sewage problem has been there for a while. And now that the immigration and the number of people coming across the border is down like 95%. It's a trickle of people coming across. So now the focus is good. Okay, now we can look at this sewage that's coming across the border and basically just contaminating this estuary area and the beaches here in South San Diego County. So we're working with the EPA. Hopefully, it looks like I'm going to be going back to DC next month and working with. I think we have a meeting set up with number 2 at the of the EPA, not Zeldin. We're trying to get a meeting with him, but the guy right below him who we're trying to get a meeting with to come up with some sort of a solution, which is going to have to be a bi-national solution. But I think with the Trump administration dealing with Mexico and tariffs and whatever other leverage we might have, we got to be able to put a stop to this. And I'm glad it's getting the attention it deserves now. At least it's got the attention of the head of the EPA. And if we continue that pressure to hopefully stop this sewage from coming across or getting that water purified before it comes across into the U.S. from Tijuana. And we're basically just ending up with their garbage and things like that people are just throwing in that viaduct.
Yeah, it's gross. And for all the money we spend on all green and clean and environmental friendly, and then it's just sabotaged with that.
Just real quickly about that. I want to add on the Navy SEALs who train at Coronado. Yes. That sewage and contamination is seeping in and finding its way into the San Diego Bay, where it's getting in there, and that's where our SEALs train. And they've been getting sicker, and they've been having illnesses from their training in the water here. they may have to move and go someplace else. So I just wanted to bring up that that's another, byproduct of this sewage contaminating waters, and not just the ocean, but the San Diego Bay itself.
Well, it's a big issue because our state is a water state. We have that whole water border. So this is something that is a great policy to champion, is being more environmentally conscious, which is something that the liberals used to champion. But apparently we can have a beach city shut down for 3 years and no one's raising the alarm bell, but you are. So I'm thankful for that. I want to talk to you going into those other issues real quick about the Saving Women's Sports that you've been championing. You've been such a champion of securing the border. How do you think you can get common sense back to Washington as a Californian? People would say it's an uphill battle. So what are you prepared to do? How are you going to actually make common sense again?
Well, I would like to see, once I get in, one of the issues I'd like to come up with is fixing our immigration system so that it works. It doesn't work right now. People that, they say it takes years, to get through the process or through the system. I think we need to, through technology or some other ways we can actually vet people so they don't have to just walk, right now or recently, they could just walk across the border and be ahead of the line. We got to be able to stop that, but we need a system that works so that people don't have to get that desperate. We need to be able to vet people. We got embassies around the world. We need a system that actually works and maybe takes months instead of years to vet people and have them come to be U.S. citizens. We do need workers in this country. And if we can have people coming, across in a working program, I do think that that's an issue that needs to be resolved. So the deportations of criminals, absolutely, we got to do that. But we need to have a system that works, and I think that's going to take time. That's something I'd like to work on once we get in. I get into D.C. and working on a system that works for everybody instead of just this long slog that just binds everybody up for years.
So you have hope that California can actually flip and become more sensical again, because you've been in San Diego your whole life, right? I think California, San Diego has been.
Well, the Navy
your
brought
story,
me here.
right?
Yeah, I grew up in Illinois, but the Navy brought me here, and I think I was like 19 or 20 years old.
So you're a Californian at this point. Yeah. Same. I have experience in other states, but California is home for me. But you've seen the shift. You've seen it go from, the conservative bastion that it was. We had Reagan not too long ago to now where it's just a cesspool and it keeps getting worse. And people will say, just leave. I get it every day. I'm sure you do too. It's not worth fighting for. Just go. There's green pasture elsewhere. So why are you sticking it out? Do you truly have hope that we can see the glory days of California again?
I think so, and I think the pendulum is swinging the other way here, particularly in this last election. Although Trump didn't win California, but I think people are starting to see the light of common sense. And even Democrats, when I was fighting for the border and going down to the border and visiting that and reporting on how many people are being dropped off every day just at a transit site. Our local,
crazy.
Most of our local news stations didn't even cover it. We had 155,000 people dropped off in our streets. And I had Democrats come up to me and say, thank you for, getting this out there and for letting people know what's going on. And with SB 54, which doesn't allow police to work together, for letting people know that's what California is doing. And I think, unfortunately, catastrophe has to happen for people to wake up. And the fires in L.A. were a good example of mismanagement of water resources and vegetation, resources. I think we need to be clearing more of the fuels that are right up against housing. We're looking at trying to do that in San Diego County. I've learned more about sheep and goats than I ever wanted to. But if we can get them in to clear the vegetation, and may have a management plan for that fuel that's right up against housing, especially when the Santa Ana winds, what direction they're coming from, and if housing's in the way, we should be able to clear that. So
it's probably not a good time to take a trip to Ghana either during that time. Just going to throw that out there. Probably want to change your travel itinerary during that time. Okay, let's talk, because I know we have to wrap. You're a busy man, and I'm so thankful for just this time with you. But final pitch and the hill that you will die on. And I'm sure we're going to have you come back on and we'll discuss more stuff happening in San Diego and California as a whole, now that you're going to be focused more on that. But I want just to leave that little appetizing taste to those listening, the hill that you will die on, from voter ID to lowering taxes to keeping men out of women's sports. You have made headlines for picking the big fights and not being afraid of the labels, which I so appreciate, because we are in the same little canoe and I love it. I love brave, courageous people. We might not agree on everything, but I appreciate so much your willingness to get in the fight and to be the only one, to be the lone wolf. And you have done that consistently in San Diego. And I personally am so thankful for that. So I just want to close out with that. What issue out of those are you most passionate about? What is it that you see as your North Star in directing you in this next journey?
I think immigration and the border issue is a big item for us here in San Diego County and Southern California, to make sure we got an immigration system that works, that allows people to come across our borders with their head held high, be dignified about it, as opposed to having to look over your shoulder all the time. We as a country, it's our problem. We need to deal with it. And I think if I can get to Congress and come up with an immigration plan and be part of that fix. I love fixing problems. And I was also an engineer. This was my degree. And so I think that one is one that I think that has to deal with safety, that has to deal with quality of life, that has to deal with all things I think that I believe in. And I think that would be a feather in my cap, I think, and what I would really like to go for, while still paying attention to the priority list that I had before. So I think that's my big push. And I think I'd be honored to represent the San Diego County in Washington, D.C., and doing practical, common sense things.
That's great. And, I agree. The immigration system is so broken, and your experience, your background, and especially over the last 4 years, everything we dealt with in San Diego plays so well into being a part of the solution. It's time for change with the immigration system. So I love that that's something that you really do want to champion. How can people follow what you're doing, be aware of all of your issues, maybe read up on them more? Because even though this vote is, it's a year away, it's good to start to be informed now. And like you said, so we don't have to spend a ton of money on the competition, and we can just focus on who it is that we want in that seat. So how can people find out more about you and champion you along the way?
Well, I got a website. It's desmondforcongress.com. It's Desmond, F-O-R, Congress.com. You can sign up to volunteer. I need volunteers a little bit later in the campaign, once we get a ground game going. Right now, my big thing is raising money. And unfortunately, I hate asking people for money, but I got to do it. That's how we get our messaging out. And it's a yardstick you get measured against in politics.
Yep.
But raising money, and if people can make donations also at that website, desmondforcongress.com, there's a volunteer page. You can make endorsements and help get the word out. I try to be practical, common sense, and do the right thing. And so people can help out. Go to that website, sign up. I'm out and about a lot, so as you run into me, come up and say hello, and happy to meet you, and happy to have you on board the campaign.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for your time as always, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, Britt, thank you.